Alright, guys, we're back already on part 2 of Carly Gregg. Now, I know today is the 21st, and his sentencing was yesterday on the 20th of September, but we were celebrating my daughter's birthday party, so we've been extremely busy. Um, but yeah, let me go ahead and get into it. Now, we did get the verdict yesterday. Yesterday, she was found guilty, and that isn't the only thing I want to talk about. I do want to talk about some really extremely unusual situations that I was paying attention to. And I want your guys' opinion because, of course, it is just my sole opinion. But I do want you to watch these videos with me and see if you draw the same conclusion as I do. I will tell my opinion towards the end of it. But yeah, go ahead, like, subscribe, comment, and let me know what you guys think. Go ahead and grab your brew, and thank you for joining me today.
Verdict of the jury is count one. We, the jury, find the defendant, Carly Madison Gregg, guilty of first-degree murder as charged in the indictment. Count two. We, the jury, find the defendant, Carly Madison Gregg, guilty of attempted murder as charged in the indictment. Count three. We, the jury, find the defendant, Carly Madison Gregg, guilty of tampering with evidence as charged in the indictment. Please be seated, Ms. Gregg.
So, like I said, and you see right there, she went ahead and got found guilty on all of these charges. And you see how her face dropped. Now, I know anybody gained the guilty sentence. It wouldn't seem too outrageous, right, for them to be devastated that they were getting the verdict. But I personally thought this case was going to go on a whole lot longer, which is usually what happens when they try to plead insanity. But maybe I watched too much true crime, or maybe I'm just seeing something. But go ahead and follow along with me. Now, if you haven't any clue about what's going on with this case, go ahead and watch video 1 for me and then come back to us. But I know people have seen this photo right here circulating. A lot of articles, even the ones I saw first, were she was seen smiling at family. And the first thing that came to my head is, blood or not, if you just killed my significant other, my daughter, my anything, like, she was a daughter, a friend, a wife. She was a person. Even though it was her child that did it, like, mentally unstable or not, I could not sit there smiling and tee-heeing with you in the courtroom, or even trying to give a sympathetic shoulder because you killed my loved one in a disgusting way. Like, it's terrible how she unalived her. But anyway, back to this picture right here. The reason I want to bring this picture up is because a lot of articles were saying she was seen smiling at family members. And when I go back and watch the video from the court appearance, you see who she's actually smiling to. Now watch this interaction with me.
C1.
Now, am I unusual to think, why does this man even have a smile on his face, period, when his wife got unalived and he got apparently attempted to unalive? And you see him mouthing, "I love you," and they're smiling at each other. Now, this isn't like I don't know, if I was actually remorseful for something I did, whether you're smiling at me and saying you love me or anything, I may say I love you too, but I would not be able to sit there with a smile on my face. Not at all. But I know they're claiming insanity, but none of the other therapies. You know what? Let's go ahead and take a look at what the therapist said.
When you learned about the events that had transpired on March 19th, were you shocked?
It's the most shocking day of my life.
Yeah. And that's based on the 9 sessions you had with Carly and the hours you spent with her.
Yes, because I had no clue that nor had she ever reported that she was severely mentally troubled to any degree like that.
Yeah. And you just, based on your knowledge of Carly and her relationship with her mom, you were shocked to find out what had occurred on March 19th.
Yes.
Swear or affirm to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God.
Have a seat. adjust yourself up to the microphone. You don't have to speak directly into it.
Okay.
But I do need you to speak so that lady in the very back row over there can hear
Okay.
you.
Got it.
You understand that you're now under oath. Your answers are sworn answers subject to penalty of perjury.
Yes, sir.
All right, you may proceed.
If you would, Olivia, introduce yourself to these men and women.
I'm Olivia Lieber,
And Olivia, where do you work?
Precise Mind.
And tell us a little bit about what Precise Mind is.
It's an outpatient mental health clinic, and we do research and mental health care for all ages.
Just to be clear, you're a little nervous today, right?
Yes, yeah, I am.
Is this your first time to ever testify?
Yes.
All right. How do you, and what is your role at Precise?
I'm a psychiatric mental health nurse practitioner.
And can you kind of tell us a little bit about what that is and what you do?
Yeah. I got a degree with a master's degree in advanced nursing practice. So I chose to specialize in psychiatric mental health. The nurse practitioner program requires 1,200 hours of clinical practice, and we have to do different specialty groups, have experience with different specialty groups like geriatrics, adolescents, outpatient and inpatient psychiatry. So it's just a specialized nurse practitioner role, provider role.
And when did you do that?
That was 2.5 years ago, and I graduated in December 2021.
And have you been at Precise the whole time since then?
Yes. Mm-hmm.
And what is it that you do? I know you told us that you're a nurse practitioner there, but what is it that you actually do, like with patients at Precise?
Okay. We evaluate them and assess them, and we diagnose and then do medication management.
When you're evaluating them, is it important that they provide you accurate information?
Oh yes, very.
And why is that?
Because we base our diagnosis on that.
Did you have the opportunity to have a patient by the name of Carly Gregg?
Yes.
Do you see her in the courtroom?
I do. And assess them, and we diagnose and then do medication management.
When you're evaluating them, is it important that they provide you accurate information?
Oh yes, very.
And why is that?
Because we base our diagnosis on that.
Did you have the opportunity to have a patient by the name of Carly Gregg?
Yes.
Do you see her in the courtroom?
I do.
Is she at the defense table?
Yes.
Olivia, I want to talk to you. Do y'all keep medical records of your treatment that you provide to patients?
Yes.
And did you do that with Ms. Gregg as well?
Mhm.
May I practice witness, Your Honor? You can take that off if you need to.
Thank you.
I've given you what's been marked previously as State's Exhibit number 19. If you could take a minute and look at that and see if you recognize those documents.
Mm-hmm. Yes, these are my notes from her visits.
And again, why is it important that we have medical records?
Well, we can't remember everything that we've done, and just to basically keep a treatment plan of what we've seen, what we think is going on, and what we need to address, and then the plan that we come up with the patient and or parents.
Do you recall the first time that you met Carly Gregg?
Mm-hmm.
When was that?
That was January 15th,
Okay.
2024.
And prior to actually having an appointment with you and you being in the room with her, did she also fill out any paperwork or have any testing done?
They are required to fill out intake paperwork that have a few screenings and just demographic information.
Did you have Ms. Gregg do any additional screenings or questionnaires?
No.
And who has them fill out if you'll turn to base stamps number, it's 757, Olivia, in that.
Okay.
I'm looking at something called the cardiac screening questionnaire.
Okay. Got it.
Kind of talk us through what that is and who has the patient fill out that form.
These are all sent to every patient. It's just like a whole intake packet, basically. If they're a minor, usually the parent does it. And this cardiac screening is mostly for patients that we're going to have on a stimulant or something that could affect their cardiac function.
And in your treatment with Ms. Gregg, you didn't really need much from the cardiac?
No.
Okay. Questionnaire. I want to take you to, looks like there is 2 pages after that. there's an adult ADHD self-report scale checklist. Is that similar in nature in that the patient fills that out before they ever meet with you? Is that something that you review?
Yes.
I want to talk about just a couple of things on that page.
Okay.
Olivia, down at question 6, it says, how often do you feel overly active and compelled to do things like you're driven by a motor? And the response was very often.
Right.
Did you review that when you were making rendering treatment to Carly?
Yes.
What about number 9 when she said she had difficulty concentrating on what people say sometimes? And she said often.
I see that.
Okay. And then if you'll turn back to the next page for me, 760, how often do you have difficulty unwinding or relaxing when you have time by yourself? And what did she say?
Rarely.
And what does that mean to you?
That this is just normal adolescent behavior. We have ups and downs at that age, and typically you can have a range of energy and or sleep disturbances throughout that age group, throughout life. So that just means that she has no trouble unwinding and relaxing, just what it says.
And then when you take the page before that, when she talks about being overly active and sometimes having concentration problems, did you take that to be the same thing, just a regular teenager that has ups and downs?
Once I asked her more about possible ADHD, that was ruled out, so yes.
Okay. And so this is not your entire treatment of Miss Gregg,
Oh,
right?
absolutely not.
I'm going to ask you to keep looking. There's something called, Olivia, the modified mini screen.
Got it?
On the following pages, it's 761, 762, and 763. What is, if you can tell us, those of us that are not in the medical field, what the modified mini screen is?
This is one of the intake screenings that we do just to kind of identify, really to let the patient look at possible symptoms they could be having and then just answer yes or no to those so that we're made aware of them. I usually overlook these before the patient comes in and just to kind of have an idea of what to ask about that I need to, focus on beforehand.
And if the patient responds yes or no, you would then ask some kind of follow-up questions.
Definitely.
When you're meeting with them. And did you do that specifically with Carly Gregg?
Yes.
I want to point you to the very last page of that document, question number 21. If you could read that for the ladies and gentlemen, what the question is and what Ms. Gregg's response was to that.
Have you ever heard things other people couldn't hear, such as voices? And she said no.
And what date was that was put in your system?
January 15th, 24.
2024.
Now, that is the 2 therapists that she spoke to prior to the murder. And as you see, they're saying they saw no signs of this whatsoever at all. And she didn't even check off the list for a lot of other things for them to even be pleading the insanity deal, right? Let's go ahead and take a look at another video of the person that spoke to her after the murder.
And when I asked her to describe that a little further, he said, quote, I think when my mom would get on me, I would kind of slip away and not be in the room. I just kind of feel like it wasn't real. I think that's how I am now because all this doesn't feel real. I mean, logically it is, it just doesn't feel that way. Close quote.
And then you went on, Dr. Gugliana, to ask her about blackouts. Can you tell ladies and gentlemen what y'all's conversation about blackouts was?
Yes.
For reference, I think that's on the same page we were just looking at, same paragraph.
Okay. I had asked her if she ever experienced a blackout, and she said that's kind of what happened with the incident, the alleged offense. She discussed further about the blackout, saying that she would just kind of space out. And I believe she said in particular whenever, like if her mom was yelling at her, she was in trouble with her mom or something like that.
Did she ever use the words derealized?
She did not.
What about the word disassociation or disassociated?
No, she did not use those words.
Did she reveal to you that she was having intrusive memories
regarding the crimes committed in this case?
Yes, she did.
Could you tell the ladies and gentlemen about that?
Yes, so intrusive memories are just memories that someone is doing something else. They're not purposely thinking about something, and the memories just pop into their head. And once they get in their head and once they're thinking about them, it's really hard to stop thinking about them. It's hard to let go of those memories. And so I don't think at that point that I asked her for details about the intrusive memories regarding the offenses, because I had not yet determined whether she was competent to stand trial, and talking about that could have potentially revealed incriminating information. So I was waiting until later to ask that, and we never ended up circling back to that.
And Dr. Giuliani, was there anything about your conversation where somebody said something about feeling queasy when they were thinking about the event?
Yes.
Tell me about that, if you would.
Carly reported that sometimes when she thought about the alleged offenses that she would feel queasy.
And what else did she say about being paranoid?
She described having thoughts that bad things were going to happen, such as that someone would jump on her in the jail or things like that. And in my experience and opinion, that's more consistent with anxiety than delusional paranoia. Whenever people kind of have those thoughts where they just worry about all these things that could potentially happen, that is symptomatic. You know, they often say that I'm paranoid that these things are going to happen, but they're not using it in the clinical sense of paranoia, and it's not what I would think of in the clinical sense as paranoia, as like psychotic paranoia.
I want to take a step back, Dr. Giuliano. The word queasy, and you talked about that Carly said she felt queasy when thinking about the event. Can you elaborate on what that meant?
I didn't ask her, but I was assuming that it meant sick to her stomach.
About the crimes that have been committed?
About something in relation to them. I didn't ask for any specifics.
At some point, Dr. Giuliano, did you have a discussion with Carly about whether or not she was hearing voices?
Yes, I did.
And what did she say about the voices?
She said that she had been hearing a male voice, since she was young. I think she said maybe around like 5 or 6 years old, which is unusual. And she said that she heard the voice every day and that it was always kind of there in the background, but she could usually ignore it and tune it out.
So why now all of a sudden is she claiming that after she killed her, she had the blackout? She had episodes of this quite frequently. And the whole thing is just mind-boggling to me. I believe, clearly we know she killed her, right? But I think the motive is a little darker than what we think. It's more surface than just her mom going in her room like they played it out to be, because there's something more. Somebody's messing with her. So let's go ahead and take a look at the fact that psychiatrists prior said that they would never have seen this coming. Psychiatrists after is pointing out all of the interactions from basically as if she's being coached on the insanity play, right? And what to say and what needs to be done. Now, obviously, the therapist isn't going to coach on this. At least I would hope she wasn't. And I hope her lawyers didn't coach her on saying this, but that's a possibility. But I feel like, as calm as she was going into this, let's go ahead and recap. Again, see how calm she was after she poo-pooed her mother? Now, she knew what she was doing with her mother because they said she was shot in the face, and then after, like, even if she hadn't finished, she did it. There was 3 shots in total, one under here and one through that one, which is the one I think initially happened when she screamed. I'm not a specialist, don't quote me, but what I'm seeing is she got shot in the face, she screamed, then she realized, like, she shot her again to make sure she was down, and then did that one for the final blow. And how calm she was after, and then she came out, sat down, text and everything. I feel like the text to her stepdad may have been coached.
Talk about was she never inquired about her mother. I mean, that's why I was saying that, she only asked about her stepdad. Hence, even when she got out of the car, she asked, "How's my stepdad?" It was never she never like said, "Is my mom okay?" or anything like that. I assumed that she didn't even know about her mom, and I didn't know the full details of the case whenever I got there.
Okay. So why was it that when I asked you before, you told the jury it was a personnel issue?
Right. Well, whenever it was paused is whenever I began talking about the issue with driving around in a circle out there, coming back and forth. That's why whenever you replay it here, you'll see another deputy going like this. That's because I was talking about that issue.
Now, may I approach, Your Honor?
Yes, sir.
As you see, the police officer says when she was being arrested, she was asking if the stepdad was okay. Is the stepdad okay? Never asked nothing about her mom. Now, I had she blacked out, or whatever the case may be. She only asked about the stepdad. So if she blacked out, she wouldn't have known either. Right? And then on top of that, why are you only asking about him? You very calculatedly did what you did to your mom. And you had more time span to plan for the stepdad because the stepdad still had to come home. But you only shot him in the shoulder. Not saying that that's a good thing. That, he should have done more. I'm not saying that, but let's take a look at this video one more time. Look at the way that they look at each other.
C1.
Look at that. Okay?
C1.
Look at that. Now look when she stands up right here.
All right, the verdict's
And they
appeared to be
read
in
off the
proper form.
verdict.
Verdict
The way
of the jury
her
is count
face
one.
is
We, the jury, find the
dropping
defendant, Carly
is if
Madison
this
Gregg,
is not
guilty
what
of
she was
first-degree murder as
expecting the
charged in
outcome
the
to
indictment.
be.
Count two.
Right?
We, the jury, find the defendant, Carly Gregg, guilty of attempted murder as charged in the indictment. Count three. We, the jury, find the defendant, Carly Madison Gregg, guilty of tampering with evidence as charged in the indictment. Please be seated, Ms. Gregg. Ladies and gentlemen, the jury, is custom for the court to poll the jury. I have to do it each time. And for each count, I'm not being rude. The quickest way for me to get through this is to simply point at you and you answer out loud. As to count one, we, the jury, find the defendant, Carly Madison Gregg, guilty of first-degree murder as charged in the indictment. Beginning on the first row, ma'am, is that your verdict? Yes, sir, is that your verdict? Yes, sir. Ma'am, is that your verdict? Yes, sir, is that your verdict? Yes. Ma'am, is that your verdict? You got to answer out loud, ma'am. I'm sorry. Yes. On the back row, sir, is that your verdict? Ma'am, is that your verdict? Ma'am, is that your verdict? Yes. Sir, is that your verdict? Yes. Ma'am, is that your verdict? Ma'am, is that your verdict? Yes. Ma'am, is that your verdict? That verdict is proper and unanimous. As to count two, we, the jury, find the defendant, Carly Madison Gregg, guilty of attempted murder as charged in the indictment. Beginning on the first row, ma'am, is that your verdict? Yes, sir. Sir, is that your verdict? Yes, sir. Ma'am, is that your verdict? Sir, is that your verdict? Yes. Ma'am, is that your verdict? Yes. On the back row, sir, is that your verdict? Yes, sir. Ma'am, is that your verdict? Yes. Ma'am, is that your verdict? Sir, is that your verdict? Ma'am, is that your verdict? Ma'am, is that your verdict? Ma'am, is that your verdict? Count three, we, the jury, find the defendant, Carly Madison Gregg, guilty of tampering with evidence as charged in the indictment. Beginning on the first row, ma'am, is that your verdict? Yes, sir. Sir, is that your verdict? Yes, sir. Ma'am, is that your verdict? Sir, is that your verdict? Yes, sir. Ma'am, is that your verdict? Yes, sir. On the back row, sir, is that your verdict? Yes, ma'am, is that your verdict? Ma'am, is that your verdict? Sir, is that your verdict? Ma'am, is that your verdict? Ma'am, is that your verdict? Ma'am, is that your verdict? All right, all three verdicts appear to be unanimous. The court will enroll the verdict. All right. All right, ladies and gentlemen, With you having returned a verdict of guilty in count 1 and count 2 of the indictment, we'll now proceed to the sentencing phase of the trial. Stand.
This girl's life is over. And I'll tell you what I think. Again, this is just my opinion, and I deeply apologize if I am wrong in any way. And I want to know if you guys agree. If you do agree, go ahead and comment below, because I'm going to leave these videos in the current true crime section for about 4 months, because I do feel like more is going to come to light about this. If not now, it is definitely going to eventually come to light. Because I personally think the way he talks about her in this video.
Tell me about how much did Ashley love Carly?
They loved each other so much. She just, everything she did, she planned out for Carly and around Carly.
About, you told us about how much Ashley loved Carly and that Carly was basically her life. Tell us about yours and Carly's relationship before March 19, 2024.
We were always good. We laughed and played and messed around, loved video games, and took her to karate stuff until she kind of got tired of that, and she started going to guitar practice weekly, so I was taking her to that every week. We got along great.
You liked being a stepdad?
Yes. She was, like I said, always thinking about Carly and just Carly's first no matter what. She would do anything in the world for her and would try to get the best for her every day.
Do you see how when he was being asked more about his personal experience with her, he would just talk about time they spent together, and he quickly changed off the subject from his relationship and switched it back to the relationship with the mom, saying how much she loved the mom. And to me, that's not sitting right. I need my body language guy. I'm going to tag him above here, and I love this guy, but it's just not sitting right with me. So I'm going to go ahead and tell you what I think it is, and I want to know if you agree. I feel like something was going on between the stepdad and her. I feel like he'd been coaching her. I believe like something was going on. And I believe it was planned. I believe to make it all look like it all tied in one, I feel like because of where he was shot and her reactions, their interactions in the courtroom, I believe that something was going on with them. She's been coached from a young age, and they came up with this plan together to unalive the mother. And I believe he wanted her to take the fall and made her convinced that it's okay, because he's like, oh, one, you're a minor, which that got X'd out the window. She was being tried as an adult. And she's lucky she didn't get the death penalty, because Mississippi has the death penalty. But they tried her as an adult, so he was probably thinking she was a minor. And, oh, she's been to the psychiatrist a couple of times. We can easily do the insanity plea. Because he's probably thinking, oh, you'll just maybe go to a hospital facility for a certain amount of time and everything will be okay. So they came up with this plan for her to unalive the mother with the pew pew, so they could have whatever thing they've got going on continue, get the life insurance policy. We need to check into that life insurance policy for sure. But I feel like they thought it was going to go in another direction. Because even though the look of shock on her face and realization, I think that realization was more of, I just killed my mom, and I've got this many years in prison for no reason. Her entire life's gone. That's what I think. You can disagree with me, and that's fine. Just be kind words. make it make sense to me, because the original reason as to why it didn't sit right with me. So I'm like, what's going on? There's more to the story. I know they were saying she was on mushrooms and whatever the fact may be of what was going on with her, but nothing seemed to sit quite right. And apparently the judge in Mississippi doesn't play, because he went ahead and this case is not going on longer than it need to be, and the jury agreed you are guilty of sin. But what led up to this moment? I hope I'm wrong. I do, because she is a minor. And after she had been coached and something was going on between the two of them, my heart breaks for that fact. Not what she did. She unalived her mother, but my heart would go out to her on that fact. And I hope I am wrong, but I do feel like I'm right. And if you have any other evidence, any proof, I am always open for you to correct me. Go ahead, like, subscribe, comment, or email me at grabyourbrew@gmail.com. Thank you for watching, guys. I hope you have an amazing week.